Hello. I think just 1 minute because we have the problem of echoing. I think it's maybe you wish to mute it. Yes, I think now it's fine. Yes. So hello, colleagues. Just I would like to introduce myself. I'm Priska Shawi, and I am member of the UNOC Disability Inclusion Team. I would like to recognize in the room with us today Mrs. Kira Krikulova. I think many of you know her. She's the director of DCM, and she's also UNOG focal point for the implementation of the United Nations Disability Inclusion Strategy. You recall that we lately had two meetings regarding the resources that are available for staff who have disability or have dependents with disability. The two sessions took place, the first in June and the second one 2 weeks ago, and they were very well attended. We, as Kira mentioned it during that meeting, we wanted today to launch the UN Disability Peer Support Network. As you know, many of us, when we have disability or we have this dependent with disability, we go through very challenging times. And this is when we are living in our country. And these challenges are even more when we leave our country and we go and we live in a third country, like many of us. And we arrive, we don't know what are the local resources, what is available. I think UNOC, under the leadership of Kira, has been doing a lot of work in order to sensitize, to raise awareness. And the UNOC Disability Inclusion Team celebrated many days regarding disabilities. And many of you contacted Kira and also Reen, who's the secretary of the team, to indicate that they would like really to get together in order for us to share our knowledge, our experience, and to really have a place whereby we can support each other. So this network is an informal network. And the aim of the meeting today, I know many of you are online, there are a few people in the room, is to really have an open discussion among all of us to see what do you expect from this network. All your input will be used later on to draft the TOR of the network so that we can really try to start and launch our activities. So without any further notice, I'm going to give the floor to Kira, who will say a few words, and then I would like to open the floor for all of you who would like to take the floor. We will give the preference for those who are in the room. And then those who are online, Claudia will give you some housekeeping tips. Please, when you take the floor, I kindly ask you to introduce yourself. And again, all what will be discussed in this room is going to be confidential. And as I said, the aim is to gather your thoughts and ideas so that we are able to draft the TOR of this network. So Kira, I give you the floor, and thank you again for being with us today.
Thanks so much, Priska. First of all, I'd like to really thank Priska for her energy in getting this started. She's always very gracious to give me a lot of credit for the work that the Disability Action Team is doing, but really it is a team and there's a lot of people working on this, but Priska and her colleague Gary have been really amazing in providing energy, especially for a lot of the day celebrations. This said, I think it's, my own son has had a lot of issues. I have my own issues. I mean, everybody's got something, right? I mean, this is how this all works. And I think the point you made, Priska, about how it's hard enough in and of itself, but then when you're living in another country where you may not speak the language very well, maybe you do, maybe you don't. And of course, when you're an international civil servant, you're not a citizen of that country. So it's not always so easy to access the services if you can even find out what's available. And I think we've done some good work with human resources. The briefing we had last week, I hope that was useful for people. But so Priska's been very active in this. And I also see other people online. Some I won't call you out by name, but you know who you are, but who also we've talked about this in the corridors about the need to have something like this. And what's interesting is how many people are struggling with these situations. Not only their personal issue, but also when you have family members And you're cut off from the village. You know, they say it takes a village, but you don't have that here. You may not have people to step in when you need that. And there are people, parents who are in situations where they have children who are going to be with them for the long haul. It's not something that, you know, disabilities can be temporary. You can break your leg and have to use crutches. They can be long-term. So I think this is a great idea. And again, thank you, Priska, for moving this forward. There is some big thing in New York that they meet periodically. That's some global thing, but we never really got much traction with that. And the thought was that here, Geneva is big enough that there's a lot of people, this is of course open to people from other international organizations. So we thought it would be worthwhile to having a discussion here. So, but again, what would be helpful for people? What would they find supportive? What would be useful? That I think is what we're very much interested in. Even just one idea, I'm going to throw in an idea from my side, just having a list of people who are willing to talk to you and maybe like a little bit of an idea what kind of thing they're dealing with. You know, so one of the people I know who I've talked to really a lot, their dependent was dealing with some mental health related disability issues. And through those discussions, I actually I hooked into some other things that were quite useful. That helped me. And then through another connection from a different direction, I met somebody who we're talking about with. So there's all sorts of resources out there. It's just not obvious. And if your French isn't what it might be, even with DeepL translation, it can be difficult to access. So for me, just having a list of people who might be willing to talk and say, hey, I have experience with these kinds of services might be useful. But I think let's open the floor to see what other people, and as Priska said, we're going to privilege people in the room first, and then we'll take everybody online. Thanks.
Thank you, Kira. And maybe, Claudia, I think you put on the chat, you would like to repeat what has been put in the chat, or it's fine, very quickly.
Yeah, so briefly, welcome to the meeting. And if you're joining us online, just you can use the raise hand option at the bottom of your screen, and then we can pass you the floor. So we also invite you to turn on your camera when you're speaking, and then we'll take care of everything else. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So with this, I think we are going to start with the person who are in the room. I don't know who would like to start. You may wish to start, or do you want me to start? I can start. So I'm going just maybe also to share something personal. I have a son who has autism, and he's now 16 years old. And I have to say that I have struggled a lot, and I'm still struggling on a daily basis. And I really tried to do everything to find doctors, to find association, to find places where he really can be taken care of. And I learned a lot. And I would like, I think, some of us have the same situation with their children. I would like this place, as we said, it's a network. One of the aim is to really share experiences, to share resources. When we speak about resources, to speak about resources inside the organization. As we said, we got the briefing, and we are going to put on the recording on our intranet. But I think we need also resources outside the organization. I don't expect the UN to come and take care of my son. I have already gotten the chance to have him recognized as disabled through the medical processes in the UN. But again, for me, getting to know what is outside, what is available is really very crucial. And this is something I would like the network to work on, that we really pool our resources regarding different things that we are facing. I think in my case, it's autism. In somebody's case else, it can be some other disabilities, hidden or unhidden disabilities. And I think this could be one of the aim of this network. So to pool information and to gather them in one place for all those who would like to use them. So, well, I hope that I have encouraged others to start. I don't know who would like, Sandra, maybe Naima or Karina. Please, Sandra.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. My name is Kira, and I work in the Office of Director General. And unfortunately, I have also a disabled son. He has a very rare disease. It's phenylketonuria. It's about metabolism disease, and The problem is that it's very difficult to find the doctors because it's very rare, and even to take a blood test, I do it myself and send it to Zurich, to Kinderspital, Hospital, the Children Hospital in Zurich, to have the result, and that's why it's very important to be united here. And I would like to thank you for this opportunity to create this network, because it's very important. And my son is 8 years old, and I'm ready to share my experience. First of all, it was awful, but now we live with this, and he's forbidden, just in ordinary words, to eat something, nothing. He can eat nothing, only special alimentation, and the special, very rare medicine. And I have created a network with the doctors in Switzerland, and my experience, my life gave this opportunity. I tried to find, when he was born, I was really shocked, and it was very difficult to find a good doctor. So here I could find it, and that's why I would like to share with my experience, to give advice to people with this kind of disability. And now he has a normal life, but this disease is very rare. Why? Because if he don't follow this treatment, he will die. That's why it's very important. And I stay positive, and I would like to say, in any case, we should say thank you to God, thanks to everybody. And that's why I would like to thank everybody, everybody, and Kira, because you created and you made a great things for each of us. Yes, as Kira has already mentioned, we have different directions, and I appreciate that you create a network with different direction of disabilities. And I'm here, and I'm ready to share with everybody if somebody needs help, a connection with the doctors, and I'm ready to share with all of us, and with people who need, maybe who also looks for the same treatment. Thank you. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much, Kira. Also, it's as we said, we get to live with this, and we need to remain positive, and also sharing it among ourselves at the workplace is important, because very often I think, I mean, its aim is not to let everybody know what we go through, but I think getting the support, being able to share, because I mean, for me, it took me years before being able to speak about what my son has without having my teeth on. I mean, it's really something that I think we go all through, but the positivity is really very important, I think.
And you know, as our Director General says, all of us, we for each problem we have a solution. So even with this problem, we are mothers, we are parents, and we should try to find a solution for our children, and for different also children who not our children, but it's very important to help. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the room who would like to take the floor? Karina? Yes, please.
Yes, my name is Karina. My son, he's 17. He just turned 17 yesterday. He has, it's on. Mine is on.
It's mine.
Okay. Yes, he has a developmental delay. So he's been in the Swiss special education, public special education, since almost 7 years. It's excellent. I can talk to anybody about that. Before that, he was 6 years in the international school, and I think it was them who advised them to be better in cadre. It's better to just move away from the international school, because then they will go nowhere. And this was really good advice. I was scared about the language. Oh, he doesn't speak that much French, but they picked up, even with the developmental delay, he picked up very soon. And now he went to, from the primary school, he was always in, they call class intégrée. So they're in a class with children with special needs, but they're in regular schools. And that's until the end of the cycle. So he finished the cycle, and then he moved to the Fundación Esquipa, which is also an excellent institution. And now he's doing that, like 2 more years of high school, let's say. And then they have, they start doing workshop, atelier, and some stage. So he's doing all that. But what they were telling us is that at some point, they will have to decide he can go to emploi adapté or emploi intégré, and all that is paid by the AI, the assurance invalidité. So are we allowed to get that? We don't know. We started with the school of that process. So if we really, if there's somebody that went through that already with the IA, that would be great to have their advice. But we just started, we just submitted all the papers that we have, all the report over all these years. And he has been really in the Swiss special education school for all his since primary. So, but I don't know how they will see it, because we have never contributed to Geneva. So I don't know how, and also for all these years, I have never claimed education grant. So maybe we can, or there's somebody that can make the link between the UN and the Swiss and say, okay, all these years of non-education grant that we can maybe contribute. So if he goes to a certification, CPC, I don't know, it's not very complicated. I just don't remember the names now. The UN can help, because they said that those certifications can cost up to 250,000 Swiss francs. So it's not something that you do like this. So I can help with the school on that. I know a lot. We went through that. It was pretty straightforward. But now the next step, that for me is a great unknown. So any help on that? Thank you.
Thanks so much, Karina. I know other people whose children are in some of the similar situation. But one thing I think would be interesting is that as you're mentioning, the intersection between sort of the Swiss system, and you're here as on a UN carte de légitimation. You're not a Swiss citizen. Your son's not Swiss. So it'd be interesting, maybe this could be another function of this group, not now to litigate the particular thing, but to capture these weird areas that fall between the chairs of, I mean, if it's international school, obviously straight up education grant, blah, 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 no problem. But it's a totally different situation. And this is something the group could maybe capture a few of these things and go back and talk to the administration and say, okay, here's the situation. What can we do? Can we discuss it with the Swiss mission? I know that because of course, Switzerland's a confederation, it's not monolithic. So even if the Swiss mission says one thing, that doesn't necessarily mean the canton will see it the same way. We know this, but these are the kinds of things that we can highlight and at least try to put them into a place where they can be addressed properly, as opposed to leaving somebody who's not a lawyer, who's not a social worker, who has a lot going on in their lives to try to struggle in a system where they don't know. But to me, that would be a big part of the terms of reference, is to surface these kind of issues where people need help, or at least they need some support to better understand the limits of what they're legally, is the canton, the state, the city is obligated to do or not, and what the UN is, and if there are the lacuna, to look at that and say, I don't know, maybe nothing could be done, but at the very least, give people the information they need to make decisions. Because, when I came, and with the older one had issues, and I came and I made assumptions that the way it worked at the UN was like how it worked at my old employer. So I made up a lot of assumptions. I didn't ask a lot of questions. And then when I went and I said, okay, well, I want to file all these claims now. Well, it just didn't work out that way. And I had made decisions based on assumptions I had made. Now that's my fault. It's my responsibility as a staff member. But I have felt, and I continue to feel, we could do a much better job explaining what's out there to people so they can make decisions up front. I think we also should make sure that the information about this group is put forward when people are onboarding. And I assume in the newcomers, I'll have to ask because I'm doing some presentation at the newcomers thing, but to assume as well that people who are newcomers can be told, hey, these are situations, here's how you find resources, and here's the group if you have questions, because a lot of people aren't comfortable discussing this, or you come and like you come and your perfect child suddenly isn't perfect anymore, and what do you do with that? So anyway, but that was my experience. But I think that would be useful because the situation you point out, Karina, is exactly something that we need to bring to, Marcus, to legal, to the Swiss mission, et cetera. And it's always better if we can point to several of these and it's not only one person. So anyway, that's my thought. Thanks.
Thank you, Kira. And my idea, but I didn't want to prejudge the discussion, was indeed to try to see the needs and get, events whereby we can invite people who can come and talk to us. Obviously, we're not going to open it to everybody, but we can always think of contacting the AE and asking them if they can really come and talk to us how things happen and what is the liaison between the UN and the fact that you are not Swiss and what they give. I think this should be one of the aim of this group. I mean, to contact resource person from outside to try to see what we can get. Naima is the last one in the room. Do you want to take the floor or shall I give it to Cynthia who's waiting online?
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be here. I really see that this is a very precious initiative for many people who need to exchange information and to support each other when things get tough, emotionally, but also in practical terms. I'll be a little bit more what I'm going to talk about is not that, in comparison to what I've just heard is almost nothing. I am a person with disability myself, and I've had an accident when I was only 7 months old, and that resulted in limited use of my left hand. And as a translator and reviser, I do a lot of keyboarding, and at some point I was expertised, and the expert said that I can only handle 1 P4 page typing a day. I know that I'm not the only person with disability who works for the UN. There are other colleagues who have different kinds of disability, and I do think it's my personal experience, but also somebody else's experience that I know of, is that there are not so many, the action taken to accommodate the staff who already have disability is not that forthcoming. And sometimes this has led somebody to miss on written tests for promotion, for instance, just because of that particular disability that person has. And I really felt very kind of hurt myself when I heard about that, because things were not put in place to enable that person to perform that written test when they needed to, when they needed that everything be put in place for him or her to perform that test and be able to see if they can make it to the CBI. So I think that these are issues that need to be taken much more, or given more priority, I would say. I don't believe that colleagues in different places are not caring or are not doing their job correctly, but I think that this at least should be given a little bit more priority and be given a little more attention, because after all, from my personal experience, my handicap was a strength. So we can, in life, you can, if you are served lemons, you have to make a lemonade, right? So this is what I've been trying to do. I was served lemons, I was doing a lemonade. And I think that all of us at some point learn to live with the challenge, learn how to overcome it and how to accept it, although it's really, really hard and it takes lots of effort emotionally and psychologically. And well, I'm here if anyone wants to share any kind of emotional burden. You can count on my discretion. And if there's anything I can do, I'm also staff representative and part of the Committee on Health and Safety in the Workplace. So if any colleagues who themselves have a disability, we can talk together, share what hurdles we are encountering and try to find solutions and work together with our colleagues in the administration, with Kira, with Priska, to move things forward so that we can to alleviate the situation a little bit more and make it and give equal opportunities to everyone. This is also very important. And I wish you much courage, colleagues who have children with disabilities. One of my nephews has my nephew. One of my nephews has a disability. He suffers from autism too, and I see how my brother struggles with that. It's really, really hard, and I wish you much courage. And I express my empathy with everyone. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Naima, and also thank you for reminding everybody that this network is open, you know, to staff who have disabilities and who have dependents with disability. And one thing, when we say dependents, we tend to think about children, but I know as a matter of fact that some of us live with spouses who have a disability. So this network is really open, you know, again, as you said, to share resources, but also to support each other. And I intend, you know, to turn it sometimes into good gatherings, positive gatherings, where really we can spend good time together, because this is also very important. You want to say something, Kira, and then I give the
no, I'm
floor
gonna
to
say
Cynthia.
Just a couple quick thoughts. First of all, I think, and Naima, thanks for pointing out again about the reasonable accommodation issue, because this is relatively new at the UN. UNOG had put together some guidelines and then they've a bit on hold because there's a global guidelines and I'm not sure where those are. But I think that's, I mean, you raise a lot of fair points, especially about, you know, as well about promotions and testing and things like that, let alone the actual work. So I just made a note. I just sent somebody a note that we need to follow up on the reasonable accommodation. One thing I think that might be interesting that we want to think about in the group, and maybe we can do it through a poll or something, is, you know, the definition of disability can be complicated, you know. So like, for instance, I have ADD. Both of my sons have ADD. I mean, not my whole family, but much of it does anyway. And that, you know, is it seen as a disability? One of the things I looked at is the definition can be, does it get in the way of you being able to live your life? So I don't think, for me, it hasn't been that much of a problem. I have certain things, I have little things I fidget with, whatever. But there are other things. For instance, sometimes people suffer from a crippling depression, people who aren't able to work. And this is sort of seen as a medical issue, but it does interfere with their life. And how we might want to think about that, because the classic thing people think, blind people, deaf people, wheelchair user, autism, that kind of thing, developmental delays. But we might want to think about, how do we want to do this? And like, for instance, I don't want to get too much into medical stuff. Like, I know we have a lot of colleagues who suffered from cancer, people, you know, et cetera. That's a different thing. So we should think about where we want to draw some of those borders. You know, somebody who may have a mental illness we even heard at the presentation, the doctor was sort of referring to mental illness diseases, and that doesn't fit in necessarily with the definition. So I don't know, to me, that's kind of a blurry area. And I think we should think, I think this is envisioned as more about things that are really long-term things. We're not so much talking about somebody who has a temporary situation, but I think we should maybe have, once we have a bit of a membership, reaffirm how we all understand that together. And maybe we could build some connections with some, if there's groups working with illness support groups, but do you know what I mean? I maybe not talking, but thanks.
fully understand what you are saying, and indeed we need to define for the purpose of this network, what do we mean by disability? Is it permanent? Is it temporary? Because a lot of our colleagues, based on what you today define as disability, have disabilities. And this is something that we should really be very clear about in the TOR of the group. Thank you. And about the reasonable accommodation, I think they are, I mean, not I think, they have been circulated as guidelines. There's no policy whatsoever up till now. And I think the problem would be funding them. And I understood that member states, mainly the US, are pushing for this in New York, that the UN really, put in place reasonable accommodation. Then I think you know how it has to go through the GA to get the approval, because the question is that how are we going to fund when there is a need to fund, because you have the aspiration about the reasonable accommodation, but putting these aspiration into practice. So I'm going to give the floor now to Cynthia. Cynthia, we had already the opportunity to exchange, and I give you the floor. And also it would be good if you mention what do you expect from this network. So Cynthia, the floor is yours.
Hi, greetings from Geneva, but actually most precisely from Lyon. Today I'm telecommuting, so that's why I could not join you today. I work here in Geneva in ITC, the International Trade Center. Recently, I joined ITC as a focal point for disability and accessibility. And I also volunteer in the UN Disabilities that was created also some years ago. I've started to volunteer 2 months ago to support them with the new website and social media. And what I expect from this group, it's also a lot of support to navigate through this words of disabilities. I have a son, autistic, he's 9. And as a lot of you have mentioned prior to me, is that it was quite a solitary journey to find the right persons, to find the right doctors, the right assistants, so that he can have all the support. We finally had diagnosis last year. And for me, it was a relief, because for many years, we were kind of struggling without any diagnosis. And without it, it was very complicated, for instance, to have support from the school. He's in a private school, a conventional school, and now, fortunately, he has a shadow teacher who will support his education, his activities in class. But all of this was with a lot of struggle. So I think the group would be very useful if you could help other colleagues that will need not to have to fight the same fights, that you could present them some clues, some tips, some hints on how to, navigate through this world when you have someone with a disability or when yourself has a disability. And if needed, of course, I'd love to just share my experience, to learn from my colleagues. And just by listening to all of you, it was already really warmth to my heart to know that you are here together. And so that's what I hope I could contribute to some extent. And especially I'm eager to learn from you.
Thank you, Cynthia, and for also sharing your experience. And we look forward to more interaction together. I don't know if there is anyone. Yes, please. Who's next? Claudia. John. So John, please go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, let me just open up my camera lens. There we go. Sorry. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for having me in the group. I know I came in last minute. Yeah, everything that everyone has said is actually on point. I've struggled with. Kira and I know each other very well. Kira and I have been in many different activities. Her sons and my sons have been in scouting. And yeah, a couple of years ago, I came into a difficult situation as well. My oldest, he's 22. He was diagnosed with autism as well, and still not quite clear on this part, but it looks like he may have had a mental breakdown as well. And It's been a struggle. It's been a struggle in terms of, you know, as everyone has mentioned, fighting the battle, trying to find information all on your own. In the Geneva community, you know, being passed from one doctor to another doctor, trying to diagnose or trying to figure out what's going on, and no one really having an exact idea. But even more than that, just the perception from the doctors that this is, you know, mental handicap is you know, not treatable or not supportable. It's frustrating. It's absolutely frustrating. What I'm hoping from the group is that we can enlighten and make the administration, the support administration, medical services, medical insurance, more aware that there's a lot of us out there, and to present the information in a better way, that veterans as ourselves or staff members that have been on board in UNOG for some time, as well as new staff members that are coming into the organization, can easily get a hold of information. That has been a struggle for myself and my son's mother, to know where to go, where to look. And as I said, my son is 22 years old, and some of you haven't faced this challenge just yet, but in the canton of Genève, in the state of Geneva, it becomes extremely difficult to find support after your child turns 18. I don't know if any of you have experienced that or not, but it is extremely difficult to find support. With that, I'm hoping again that the group is also Kira and I have talked about just having a social mechanism, a social group there to support each other, just for moral support. Some of you have mentioned it's a struggle to, you know, you're handling it by yourself, or you and your spouse are handling it together, but you know, again, it's something you are handling in your household, and really no release mechanism to get outside and just feel like you can unwind. That's all for me.
Thank you, John, for sharing also. And indeed, the need to unwind is very important for many of us who find themselves in such a situation. And I think already we have a very good collegiality at the UN among ourselves, and find, you know, reuniting around these kind of issue would only, you know, give to each other more and more support. And about the social, you know, gatherings, as I said, I think this also would be the aim. It's not the aim only to come and, you know, to share, but maybe when you share, you listen to the experience of other, you, as Naima said, you put things in perspective. And already this for me is already a lot. So I am aware of the time. We have only 1 minute remaining, but if you don't mind, we are going to continue. Kira, I don't know if you can stay till 2 o'clock, because we have Aurélie and Graham, and believe me, it's not our first and last meeting. There will be many other meetings. So I give you the floor now to Aurélie. Please, Aurélie, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Aurélie. I work for UNHCR, and I'm the mother of a child who is 8 years old and has been diagnosed with a very rare genetic disease. And she needs a lot of support, both in terms of the school and also medical support. And I just wanted to raise 2 points. The first one is in the hospital in Geneva, they are currently setting up a center to take care of children with a complex and rare disease. It will be for the children. It will start in January, and hopefully it will allow a better coordination among the doctors in medical care, and it will also make a link with the schools, with the therapists. And they will also offer support to family in terms of information sharing, links with the school, with the therapist. So I think this would be a good resource for some of the parents. And I'm happy to give more information or to ask someone to present the center. I was asked, as a parent, to provide feedback in some of their discussion and inputs, and to present the challenges that the families may encounter. So that's the first point. The second point I wanted to mention is, I'm very grateful for this group, and I think it will be very useful. I hope when you will bring all our issues to the UN administration, that we can also do it to the different administration of the UN agencies, because we don't necessarily have the same policies. I'm thinking maybe in terms of flexible working arrangements. So I hope we can bring everything to the different administration. And I'm happy to bring it to UNHCR, for instance.
Thank you, Aurélie. And indeed, I think one of the tasks of this group is also, to make recommendation to Kira as a unique focal point for disability. And she can bring them also to New York, whereby you have the main policies. I am aware that UNHCR, you have your own policies, but very often you inspire yourself from the overarching policy that are adopted at the level of the UN Secretariat. And thank you also for informing us about the rare disease section in the hospital. I'm aware that there is a very well-known one in France in the Hôpital Necker, but it's very good information. And all these information that have been shared, we are going really to put them together. With the time, I will see how we will figure out the way to put all the resources. And thank you also for Clara, who mentioned the organization Ask, and all these are resources that we need to capture in one place whereby we can all of us use them. I'm going now to give the floor to Graham. I don't know if there will be. Graham, please, the floor is yours.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you. Yes, I think this is a really good initiative, and I think that the progress being made, not only with this initiative, but also the town hall meetings we had recently, have been very good. I think, just very briefly, I think I've been in UNCTAD for 10 years. I'm a tetraplegic. I use an electric wheelchair, and I found it an incredibly difficult experience, actually coming to work here as a disabled person. I think that often, I think the point about being more proactive when people are onboarding is an excellent point. I think when I was onboarded, I was very kind of keenly told what wouldn't be provided to me, but they were very hesitant about what was possible or what could be provided to me. And I felt a lot of the time I was kind of fumbling around in the dark. I think that at the time there was a kind of attitude that if something was published online, then that was adequate kind of outreach. And Kira talks about kind of staff responsibility, but also there has to be some kind of bridge to the staff, I think, a bit more, and that seems to be happening, which I applaud. I think my experience as well, that a lot of people I was dealing with when I was asking for things, there was always a kind of a frown and like, oh, we've never done this before, or this is an unusual situation. And then when solutions were found, which were some ways kind of workarounds to rules, or rules were interpreted in a way to facilitate what I needed, it was then somehow that, that was a fortunate situation that I was able to get that. So to be more demanding or perhaps asking reform of a system was very difficult. So I think this group can act very well in that. If you feel a little bit kind of your situation feels kind of fragile, at least you've got other people there to kind of advocate for change together, which I think is an incredibly important aspect of that. So I'm basically just very pleased to be part of this. And if there's some kind of, I don't want to kind of have our experience having to kind of replace the resources that HR can give, but in terms of kind of guidance, as you say, social and kind of solidarity, I think that this can be a very important group. And I'm really pleased as well to see, the progress being made generally. We talk about the recommendations. Again, this is formalizing something which has been on an ad hoc informal basis has been granted. Now, I'm very lucky. I'm a very good manager, very understanding, and we have a good relationship. But I realise that is certainly not the case. Is not the kind of default situation across much of UNCTAD or UNOG, sorry, or the UN. These kind of staff manager relationships aren't always naturally excellent or understanding. So I think the formalization that's being put into disability inclusion is excellent. But I think we can do, once these formal structures are in place, I think we can do a lot more, and voice can be a little bit louder. So thanks for that, and thanks for this opportunity.
Yes, thank you, Graham, and I give the floor to Kira for the quick reaction for you.
Just say something really quick, Graham. I just back to my initial issue with my son and his disability and stuff. It did feel phenomenally personal, because you ask people and they say, here's the rules, read these. And of course you're like, what does this even mean? How does this interpreted? And then the face, that ooh, and then if you get something, it feels like somebody's granted you a favor. And that's not how it should be. It shouldn't be like, oh, I hooked you up. It should really be like, okay, this is what we can do. And I understand you can't have a rule for everything, and it does need to be personal, but I think putting a bit more structure, and I'm really perhaps overly optimistic about these reasonable accommodation guidelines, because that'll give managers a sense, some framework to work with, and not be like, oh, I don't know, I haven't heard about it and I don't have money for it. So, I think that's going to be helpful. But I agree, we have to look at it, we have to share, we have to make sure the information is out there. And thank you so much for being part of this. I think it is the more people understand that this is not that unusual. I mean, it amazes me how many people, I don't know 20,000 people. I mean, I know the usual number of people, and it's pretty common for people to be in this situation, so it shouldn't be treated as some sort of weird aberration, So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. And I think, Kira, I mean, we have come from a long way already, to start talking about the issue. And it's no more a taboo. I recall when I joined the UN 17 years ago, it was not a subject we would mention, but and obviously we will have to continue. And with such group and also the support we have from you, I am hopeful that things will change, and then we will change also the culture of the organization, whereby it's no more stigmatizing if you are suffering from disability or you have a dependent with disability. Yes, Naima, you want to say something, and then we will conclude the meeting if there's nobody else asking for the floor online. There is one. Okay, very quickly, and then we give the floor for the last intervention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Priska. I just wanted to commend Graham for what he said about the importance of the relationship that a person with disability has with their supervisors, and the impact of that on the accommodation that is granted or not to the staff member with disability. I think that this particular case should be removed from office politics. It should not, as Kira said, it should not be considered as an aberration or as a favor. I mean, when you ask for accommodation, it's because you need it, not because you are kind of, faire des caprices. It's just because it's needed, and there's nothing glamorous about asking for accommodation or having a favor or having a special treatment. It's just the situation requires it, and that's it. Thank you, Graham, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Naima. And I'm going to give the floor to John Moore, please. And we will be concluding the meeting at 2. Please, the floor is yours, John.
Yeah, thank you, Priska, for giving me the floor. I also want to praise Graham for that, and I appreciate that he's had probably a much more of a struggle through getting through the UN and UNOG than any of us. But I also did want to touch on, I wasn't sure if it was Priska or someone else who talked about the taboo. And that's something I would love to see this group tackle, in terms of not being us as parents or someone who is suffering a particular disability, but also being able to feel like we can open up to our managers. Now, as you all heard earlier, I'm lucky that my managers are very accommodating when I have a particular situation arise with my son. And this, I think, also needs to be much more embraced within the culture of UNOG. Thank you guys for letting me be here and sharing my my thoughts and sharing with you what I've been struggling through. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And indeed, the fact that manager have to be understanding is really very important. And I think the more we speak about it, the more we are sensitizing everybody. I recall like 17 years ago, we wouldn't speak about gender like we were talking about it now. There are a lot of things, and it comes with communication, with effort, with being here, with speaking up. I think one day or another things will change in the UN. I don't know, Kira, if you want to say something before I conclude. So I would like to thank you all, those present in the room and those who have been online. What we are going to do now is we are going to draft TOR of this peace support network. Kira mentioned something global. It's actually in New York, UN Disabilities. I'm not sure they have been very active. They are lucky to be in New York, but I hope at a certain point we can also join forces, because this is the aim at the end, that we help each other and to make recommendation to those who can make a difference through the UNOC focal point on the implementation of UNDIS and also other means. So again, thank you for having made it, and then you will hear from us regarding the TOR, and we will try to get an in-person gathering maybe in January or February, so that we can exchange more and more, because I'm also aware that exchanges and exchanging emotions through the Zoom platform is not the best. So hopefully next time we can gather together all in person. Yes, Kira.
Just first, thank you, Priska, for all your energy, but also please spread the word. The more, talk to people, if you know people are in a similar situation, and it doesn't have to be a big issue as well. Sometimes, people have something smaller, but it's, whatever it is, I think the more we realize that other people are in this situation, the better off we are and the more effective we'll be for advocating. So please, thank you for everybody. Friday afternoon is a tough sell, but please, if you know of other colleagues who have similar situations, please ask them to participate and send ideas for this to Priska. But thank you, Priska.